I'm going to write a book in 3 months. Well, not a finished book, but a first draft of a book. Not a book that I can send to publishers or to agents or to anyone really, but a first draft of a novel. And if you're wondering who is this strange woman yelling unrealistic literary goals at you, hello, my name is Marina and I'm an aspiring author with many jobs, none of which is currently being an author. Not just yet, anyway. Well, we're working on it. In summary, I'm busy, but I still want to write books. So if that resonates with you, maybe you want to come with me in this journey that I'm sure will be really unhinged and maybe stressful, but probably a lot of fun. So yeah, let's go. Let's do this. First things first, I'm planning on writing a book in 3 months. And why is that? One of the first reasons is that it is currently mid-June and one of the jobs that I do is as a storytelling teacher, which means the rest of the year might be a lot busier, but the summer is that moment of the year that is a little bit more free. Not completely, but a little bit more free. So if this is not the perfect time to try and speed write a draft of a novel, I don't know when I'm going to do it. So let's aim to do it in this months of the summer. So I would really like to take advantage of this 3 months in the summer where I don't have the usual enormous amount of assignments and exams to correct. Another reason is that I haven't been able to finish any project recently. I have one project that is finished and has been sent to agents and publishers, but I don't want to get too trapped on that one and I want to move on with my life. And in the last couple of videos I've talked about a failed project or a project that I haven't been able to move forward with, and I'm going to just drop it for a minute and see if I go back to it. Hopefully I will. But I'm really feeling like something new and something fresh and something that fits more with the summer, because the project that I just abandoned is a bit of a depressing, gloomy one, and I just don't feel like it right now, and I really want to focus on something that is more lively, more adventurous, and more free and more happy, because it just fits the season better. So even though I don't really like deadlines, I seem to thrive more on deadline than in the absence of them, which is quite annoying, but it is what it is. It's the reality of how my brain works. So I figured it would be a good idea to give myself a hard deadline for this project. The third and last reason is that I seem to get bored when I've been working on the same project for too long, or at least on the first draft. I talk about this a little bit in the previous video, but just to summarize, I don't think I can be battling with the same story for too long. I think I have to get it down on paper pretty quickly, or otherwise I kind of lose interest in it. And I also get kind of detached from the story if there's long pauses in between periods of actively working on it. So what am I going to do to achieve this massively ambitious goal that I am setting up for myself? First of all, clearly I'm publicly announcing it on the internet to scare myself enough that I keep going even when I feel like it's impossible and when I get unmotivated and when I want to just throw the goal out the window. So please make sure you keep me accountable, because I could very easily just go like, nah, lost interest, I'm moving on to the next thing, and yeah, whatever. Goal never existed, deleting video, it never happened. And my second strategy is that I'm going to plan a little bit more than I usually do. For a little bit of background, I think of myself as a discovery writer, which means that I don't plot beforehand. I kind of discover the story as I'm writing it. But that hasn't been working very well lately. I think it's one of the reasons that has meant that I abandoned projects more than I would like to. And B, I can't really afford to get blocked because the timeline is so tight. If I get stuck for a couple weeks, there goes all my planning. I will not be able to make it because I don't really have a lot of room for error. Let's move on to the different phases of this challenge. Challenge? Should I call it a challenge? There's really only two: planning and writing, because I like to simplify things as much as possible. And it's about to sound like that's not true, because these are the tasks that I intend to do in my planning phase. First of all, I'm already working on the character arcs because I've been thinking about it, and I reckon that's going to help me define the different beats of the story. Then I would like to draft a very loose outline, just enough that I don't get blocked and not so much that I get bored of it before I start writing it. And then 3 elements that are by no means necessary, but I think that would be nice to have: a map of the world or a distribution of the space. You know how it is in fantasy stories, maps are always just great. a playlist, which is not something that I do very often because I tend to get distracted if there's music when I'm writing. I can only write with instrumental music because lyrics just like completely steal my attention. But I think it might be a good idea to try and put me in the mood or the mindset for this story in this universe in particular. And I'm going to try it, maybe just for the beginning, just when I want to start writing, and then I can stop it if it's too distracting, or I can keep using it if it's working. And the last one is a mood board, which is something that I know a lot of authors use and even need. I think I might make the mood board and then never look at it again, so it's not a must-have for me, but I reckon it might be a cool tool to have around. Maybe it will inspire me. Maybe it is what I've been missing all along, and that's why it's not working lately. Another type of planning that in this case is not narrative or related to the story in any way is my personal and professional calendar, which I'm going to have to take into account when it comes to writing the story and working on the project. Because obviously, like I said before, writing is not my full-time job or my job in any capacity at the moment. So this is not going to be a very complicated calendar. It's just about taking obstacles, dates, appointments into account so that they don't interfere too much in my aspirations. And then there's the other phase, which is simply writing the draft. I know that this is not a very long time to write a draft, and I'm aiming for it to be between 70,000 and 80,000 words, which would be around 700 and a bit 800 words a day, which is, I think, achievable because I'm a pretty quick writer, which doesn't mean that the words I write are good enough to stay in the draft forever. They are going to have to be polished and rewritten and worked on and every kind of thing. This idea was conceived as a standalone fantasy story, and I would like to give myself a little bit of room for expanding the story and the world building and enrich it and give more detail in further drafts. So that's why I want to try and keep it short for this first draft. And I think this will also allow me to speed draft it in the way that I want to do it. I don't think I would be able to write 100,000 words in just the 3 months. Maybe I could if I really tried, but I don't think that would serve the story in the best way. I think I would be overwriting, and probably those extra words would not be that great. So in conclusion, the goal is to end that 3-month period with a finished draft. It will be a draft 1, and it will very likely be a shitty one. Because it's such a short time, there's no room for writer's block, perfectionism, or silly things like self-doubt that we are not going to allow in this space. At the end of it, there has to be a full story. Not necessarily a good one, not necessarily an original one, not one with the most perfectly developed character arcs and the richest world building of all time. Not one without typos, not one that is ready to be sent to anyone other than myself. Just a complete story that I can then work on. Thank you so much for staying until the end, and I will see you on chapter 2 of this challenge.